Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're going to talk about climbing Mount Faith. I have heard that mountain climbing can be very tough work. You have the rocks, you have the wind, you have the incline. I personally have not gone mountain climbing just because I feel like if God wanted me to climb a mountain, he would have given me goat's feet. And since I don't have those, I have determined he likes me to hike trails, not climb mountains. There is a trail that a friend and I have hiked probably 3 or 4 times now, and every time we hike this trail, we get lost. We end up on trails that we didn't even know existed according to the map. We consult the map, we take pictures of the map, we follow the little colored markers along the trail we want to hike, and then we still end up in places that we've never gone before. One time we even actually hiked the same part of a trail twice in the same day and didn't even recognize it from the first time. I swear up and down this trail is enchanted. So one of these times we were hiking and we didn't want to hike the high altitude trail. We wanted to stick to a more level path. So we had crossed the stream. I was wearing flip-flops as we crossed the stream, and I just decided to keep them on because they were pretty comfortable. It was raining a little that day, but it wasn't too bad. So we crossed the stream. We get to hiking on the trail we want that was supposed to be level, and then, slowly the trail started to rise, and I felt like starting to climb up to higher altitudes, having to just really climb on rocks, from step to step to step, which was a little difficult to do in flip-flops and in the rain. I really had to look at my feet to make sure I was not going to fall. And, soon it became hard to even carry on conversation with each other. Really began to get out of breath. And just looking ahead, all you saw was the trail going up and up and up. And we realized yet again we had gotten on a trail we didn't intend to be on. But here we were, and, didn't want to go back down because we'd probably just get lost again. So the only way to go was up. We were getting pretty soaked by that time with the continued rain. Sorry, I do have a bit of a tickle tonight. So it was turning into a pretty discouraging situation. Just being on this trail and kind of lost yet again, no matter how hard we tried not to be. And then all of a sudden, as I'm climbing up this hill, which was the steepest and most strenuous hill I've ever hiked up, all of a sudden I start hearing something. And first I thought it was voices of maybe others who were hiking on the trail either above us or behind us. So I didn't think anything of it, but it continued on. And then I realized I started to recognize some of what was being said. And what had happened was my phone, despite it being safely in my backpack, everything in my backpack secure. I didn't touch anything in my backpack, but somehow a music app had gotten opened up on my phone and it had started playing the last thing I was listening to, which was some praise music. So it was just kind of God's reminder to us as we were kind of in that situation we didn't want to be in, that he was still there and he was present. It was actually pretty cool, and it really did encourage us for the rest of that trail. So that's really my only experience as far as hiking up a mountain. But figuratively speaking, this journey that I'm on currently with, having reduced my hours to part-time hours, working on weekends where, I'm not able to attend morning church anymore. On Sundays, it's been a big change for me. As I told my husband last night, it feels like the things that have been constants in my life as far as financial stability and church attendance, those things are kind of in a blender right now. It's like the rug of stability has been removed from me. And so that, can be a little unsettling if, I don't know the way ahead. I don't know, where this all is going and the final destination. But I do know 100% that God called me to this journey, and I have that assurance. And so, I was thinking about Abraham. I have been studying a lot in Genesis since the beginning of the year. In the beginning, when we meet Abraham, I don't know the exact chapter right this moment, but I believe probably Genesis 12, let's say. Abraham is called out of his hometown. He's called away from his family, except for his wife and those in his household. He's called away from the land that he's lived forever. And God just says, to follow me to a place that I will show you. God doesn't even really tell him where he's going other than he says to follow him. And Abraham does, which is pretty impressive. So Abraham starts out on his journey with God, just not with a whole lot of details other than God saying, that he'll tell him what that next step is. I'm also kind of consulting the blog, which I wrote all this on earlier because I don't have it memorized, even though I wrote it. So he sets out on this journey, which also includes God making a covenant with Abraham in Genesis 15, that he will make him the father of many nations. His descendants are going to be more numerous than the stars in the sky or the sand on the beach. That all nations, all peoples of the earth will be blessed through Abraham. And so that's that covenant that he makes with Abraham, except that Abraham doesn't have a son. He doesn't have any children. And I had discussed that in a different video of him and Sarah trying to solve this problem of their own by him taking on Sarah's maid Hagar as a second wife and having a son that way, but that was not God's plan for them. He wanted to give them a biological son through Abraham and Sarah. So Abraham and Sarah do finally have this son Isaac. I think Abraham is 99 or so, and Sarah is about 89. So well beyond natural childbearing years, just I feel like in God's ways, showing that this was totally from God and not from them. So Isaac grows to be a little older. We're not told exactly how old Isaac is, but now we're going to fast forward to Genesis 22. So God calls Abraham again to take Isaac, and they're supposed to go to a mountain, and God tells Abraham that he is to sacrifice his son Isaac to him. And, first of all, that probably was a little heartbreaking for Abraham, as this was the child of the promise. This was the promised child that God had given to Abraham and Sarah. It also was probably confusing for Abraham, because how could he be the father of many nations if the only son God recognized, Isaac, was sacrificed and dead? So despite these things, Abraham obeys. So he sets out with Isaac. He takes wood. He takes some fire starter, which I assume may be flint. He takes the knife. Of course, there's a few servants accompanying them. And then they get to the mountain that God had told him to climb to sacrifice Isaac on. And, he leaves the servants behind, takes Isaac, the wood, the flint, and the knife. And he tells the servants, "Stay here with the donkey, and I and the lad will go over there, and remember that word, we will worship and return to you." And that's found in Genesis 22, verse 5. So when Abraham says we, meaning him and Isaac, it shows that he has full faith that God somehow would enable Isaac to either come back to life after he was sacrificed, or that Isaac wouldn't die after all, and they both would be coming back down that mountain. So that's the first time, that Abraham outwardly shows that faith that he has. The second time is as he and Isaac are climbing the mountain. Isaac wants to know, we have the fire, we have the wood, we have the knife, but where is the lamb for this burnt offering? And Abraham says, God will provide for himself. Remember that as well. God will provide for himself the lamb for the burnt offering. And that's found in Genesis 22, verses 7 and 8. So God will provide for himself. So this wasn't Abraham bringing a lamb along. This wasn't Abraham and Isaac searching the wooded areas for a lamb. This was God providing the lamb. Abraham and Isaac doing nothing other than having faith that God would provide it. And now at the very moment, Abraham ties Isaac up, places him on the altar. He starts to put the wood on him, raises the knife to kill him, and then an angel comes and stops. And God says, now that I know you fear me in all things because you didn't even withhold your only son from me. And that just shows true faith. Abraham was thinking, or was told, that he was going to have to sacrifice his son. And he took that journey and he climbed that mountain anyway, not knowing how God was going to keep the promise of him being the father of many nations, not knowing how God was going to keep the promise of him having more numerous descendants than the stars. But he was 100% sure that that was going to happen. So he was obedient in that. So through that story of Abraham, it just strengthened me in this place that I'm currently in of uncertainty. There's whispers. I'm at the gas station the other night and pumping gas, and I'm reminded of a really large dental bill that's going to be coming due in a month. And right now, I don't know how that's, going to get paid. But I do know that God called me to this journey. And he knew about that dental bill before I was called to this journey. And he already, as we saw in the earlier verses, God will himself provide. It's not me creating a GoFundMe. It's not me, making a bunch of stuff through crochet to sell. It's trusting God to provide. Now, if he does bring me something to do, and I feel like it's his will for me to do that to make some extra money, then I will do so. But it's trusting in God no matter what. As I read in Isaiah a few months back, King Hezekiah was sent a threatening letter by an enemy of basically saying, we're going to kill you. Tomorrow you and all your people are going to be dead. We're outside your walls. You're outnumbered. You have no help. And instead of worrying and just kind of trying to figure this out for himself in this hopeless situation, King Hezekiah takes this letter to the temple, and he just lays the pages of the letter before God, and says, God, this is out of my control. I don't know what to do here. I need you to intervene and intercede here. And it happened. So this is what we must do. If there's things beyond our control, then just bring it before God. Lay it before him and just watch and wait and see what he will do. This is the time to really determine, do you believe what you say that you believe? And do your actions and your words show that you trust God, you trust his character, you trust his word? Because people are watching. People watch what you say, they watch what you post. And if you say, I trust God, but then you're running around trying to figure all this out on your own like a chicken with your head cut off, that doesn't show trust in God. So no matter what the rocks are, no matter what the wind is, no matter what the altitude is of what the journey lies before you, if God's called you to it, then your answer needs to be a humble and a confident yes. I believe what I say I believe. I trust God's character and I trust God's word. So that is the word for today. And whatever mountain of faith you have before you, climb it with God. Thank you and have a blessed night.